Okay, so I'll start our presentation by reading to you our chosen needs statement. A way to detect bacterial infections in swine production in order to avoid mass-scale antibiotic therapy, reducing costs and antimicrobial resistance. Yes, I'll explain. Our need is to find a way to early detect infections in pigs through monitoring body temperature changes, allowing individual treatments. These are the most common agents that can cause swine infections: Aeromonas, Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeria, Staphylococcus aureus, and Yersinia. The clinical patterns in pigs that indicate bacterial infections and systemic inflammatory response syndrome are hyper or hypothermia, tachycardia, tachypnea, leukocytosis, or leukopenia. We came up with this idea after realizing the problem of mass-scale antibiotic use in swine production. Nowadays, whenever one pig is sick in a farm, broad-spectrum antibiotics are given to all animals in water and food for prevention. However, preventative antibiotic use increases antimicrobial resistance, as the infectious agent is not identified prior to choosing the medication, and all healthy pigs take medication. It is really important to think about this issue because antibiotics used almost daily in animal feed induce multi-resistance bacteria. Its constant use threatens the ability to treat common infectious diseases when they are actually present, which can lead to prolonged illness, disability, or even death of the animal. Also, reckless use of antibiotics in animal production has a direct impact on one health through AMR. When considering humans, antimicrobial resistance increases the cost of healthcare, requiring lengthier hospital stays and more intensive care. Here you can see a table of the solutions that already exist. Production without the use of antibiotics with very rigid, controlled environment and diet is great, but can only be carried out in smaller farms and requires extensive control of the production. The use of probiotics, prebiotics, acidifying agents, and natural herbs can complement, but not replace antibiotic use. Isolation and testing of microbial agents would be great, but would only provide late diagnosis, as well as detecting pathogens in feces and urine. And the medication Forcil is a quick solution and has reduced concentration in meat, but is still an antibiotic.
Okay, so here we have a BCG analysis that we did with all of the existing solutions. So as you can see on the x-axis, we have market share. So the further right you go, the more in the market a solution is, and on the y-axis we have business growth rate. So the further up you go on the y-axis, the more opportunity your solution or your company has to rise. We placed all of these where we thought that they exist, but the most important is the red circle, which is the ideal start position for our solution. We want to be able to be something that has a really high opportunity of existing with a large growth rate, even though we're going to start pretty small. So who are our key stakeholders? We have the direct impact on swine farms, agricultural co-ops, the Brazilian Ministry of Health, Anvisa, which is an organ of regulatory agency and surveillance here in Brazil, MAPA, which is the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, and Food Supply, Embrapa, which is the Brazilian Agricultural Research Agency, producer unions, so unions of producer farms. We're not sure how strong they are or what they are, but we know that they exist, and business incubator and potential shareholders. So how are they affected? Well, we plan on having a solution that will provide lower costs and through a return on investments. We plan to offer a new market opportunity, so to take the market that already exists and create a new market by giving them a new opportunity with our product. And something that's really important is that we think that our products could bring about awareness to AMR and therefore provide new legislation, which will empower agencies that already exist in the Brazilian government, like Embrapa and Anvisa, and give a new point of view to solutions that they have been trying to create for years. So AMR has been something that's been on the map for years, but not something that has been able to get passed through Congress because people don't really see it as a problem. Here we did a pest analysis, so political factors. OMS, here it's in Portuguese, but it's the World Health Organization, so WHO. We have WHO advice and current agenda of international and national events. So, like the United Nations high-profile meeting on AMR. We have local Brazilian governments that are part of the global action plan and have developed a national action plan for AMR. We have economic factors. The international market really since Brazil is one of the largest swine producers in the world, there's a lot of international pressure from people that buy the exported meat on reducing the use of antibiotics. Social factors, obviously the One Health aspect of this. So if we can reduce antibiotic residues and resistant bacteria in meat that humans will consume, we can maybe break the cycle that exists in which we contaminate not just food and humans, but animals and the environment as well. Then we have technological factors. So we need to know our solution involves the detection of the SIRS symptoms, and that requires a knowledge of temperature and heat technologies and emerging demand that Embrapa already has on research and development in these areas. Here we have the market. So Brazil is one of the largest swine producers in the world, but those productions are concentrated in 3 states in the south. So you see Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul, and Santa Catarina, which together make up more than 50% of the Brazilian swine production. These are all kind of concentrated in that little red block that says south. Those 3 states are in the south. We're going to try and focus to start with companies in Paraná, since it's where we're based, and as well as one of the largest producers. But we think that trying to take on all 3 at once is a really good idea, because we don't want to tackle more than 50% of the production at once. We need to maybe conquer a local market and grow from there. Here we have also the cost of the entire life cycle of the production of the swine. So this occurs in about 100 days. We have piglets that weigh 6 kilograms. We have piglets that are no longer being breastfed by the mothers, and they reach about 22 kilos. And then we have the animal that will eventually be slaughtered and consumed as food. And this production, depending on the way they are grown and produced, can reach up to $2.3 billion US. This is the most critical part of our market analysis. So in the entire production of swines, we look at the first row that says antimicrobial, and it accounts for 34% of the cost of production of swines. As you can see, that's more than literally every other part of production. They spend the most amount of money on antimicrobial agents. So what is our need criteria? We have our must-haves. The first is an equipment that will be able to detect the symptoms of SIRS. The second is equipment that can relate this information back to a source that we have planned as maybe some type of software. It needs to reduce broad-spectrum antibiotic use as well as antibiotic use in general. So we want to be able to target specific pathogens when we use antibiotics, when we need to use them. Nice to have would be interactive software or AI, or some type of artificial intelligence that can analyze all of the symptoms and tell you which specific infection that pig will have. We want aeroeconomic tech, because we don't want to stress the pig out. This is really important in terms of the market factor, because if you stress out the pig, it will contaminate the meat in the sense that the meat will become harder and it won't be accepted by buyers. It would be nice to have some type of biomass detection, so the solution would be able to tell you how much a pig is growing, how much it's producing in biomass, how much of that is fat, and then we would like it to be able to tell us or give us a range of which infections the pig may have. So it would be like, oh, it may have this infection, or this infection, and it'll be easier to narrow it down from 3 than from, say, all of the infections possible for that pig. So after intensive brainstorming, we came up with this solution, and it's the development of a tag or a chip that will detect any changes in the vital signs of the pigs. The product will then relay information to a computer program which can be analyzed by a medical professional who will determine signs of infection. So our rationale, what is the solution essentially? So we would either have a subcutaneous microchip or a cutaneous tag that would be able to identify biomarkers that we know to look for, which we have established to be SIRS, and would relay them back to a program. Upon analyzing and determining that there is an infection by a medical professional, so maybe a vet or someone that's trained to do that, we would be able to detect early on and isolate the pig that is sick and treat only that pig. So we would reduce the use of antibiotics as well as reduce the risk of AMR by not treating pigs that are healthy with antibiotics. What are our next steps? So we need to do a lot of further research into whether we want the subcutaneous chip or the cutaneous tag. So we plan on making a list of pros and cons with, market value in there, so how much it would cost to make each, in terms of whether it would stress the pig out or not, etc. We would really like to prototype the tag or chip. We are focusing a lot on nanotechnology for the production of the chip, but we plan on 3D printing a prototype. In terms of technology, we need to establish software and hardware. So the software would be the program in which the information would be relayed to the professional, and the hardware would be the chip or the tag that would be sending that information over to the hardware. Cost and market. We need to ensure that this is going to be a solution that is going to either provide a return on investment for the investors or the people that would buy these tags, or that it would be cheaper than what is already spent on antibiotics. And like we said, we really, really need an ergonomic design because the market demands that. We need the pigs to be stress-free so that the meat isn't hard. Thank you so much, Javi. We look forward to your feedback.